Greetings, everyone. So, my name is Stacy Sims, and I'm the founder of The Well, Mindful Poetry Moments and Mindful Music Moments and other programs. And Mindful Poetry Moments, our partnership with On Being and Poetry Unbound, is one of our favorite programs. So, I'm gathering myself a little bit. So I'm excited about today. So our frame for our gatherings, it's pretty simple frame and gorgeous and nourishing. And the way it will work is that we feature one poem from Gorgeous Poetry Unbound, selected by one of our guests to talk about the poem, then to give us a prompt, and we do writing, and then we come back and we share if we'd like. We kick it off at the top with a meditation. And I'm going to introduce our meditation host and our poet host in a second. But I also wanted to let everyone know that we have a closed captioner. Jody is with us. And the last time we gathered, we had some guests who were frustrated because they couldn't really participate fully because of hearing impairment issues. So thanks to On Being, we now have committed to having a closed caption service. So the way it works is that where it says live transcript at the bottom of your screen, if you would like it to show you the closed captions, you can do so. And if you would, if you don't want those to be showing, you just click it again. If you have any difficulties, you can go and chat with Ro. So sorry, I have a dog. Excited about the weather here on this end. I'm going to mute myself in a second, but we have a lot of poets in the room today and with different voices. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Katz and Brad Aaron Maudlin. So I'll start with Ben. So Ben Katz is the Associate Director of Religious Life and Social Healing at the On Being Project. Ben is going to lead our meditation, and then I'm going to introduce you to Brad. And I'm going to happily take a meditation time with Ben.
Thank you so much, Stacy. It's really good to be with you all today. So as we begin, I do have a Zoom request for you. If possible, the first request is if you feel comfortable, just leave your camera on for this moment. If you're not comfortable with that, that's fine as well, but I encourage you to leave your camera on. And the second thing, and as you do this, I invite you to, if you notice some tension in your jaw, or maybe your heart's beating a little fast, or just, whatever else, some tightening somewhere in your body, just sort of gently let go. But if you could take my Zoom box, so where you see me, if you're on the, go to gallery view if possible. If this is too technical, just ignore me. Go to gallery view, slide my box all the way up to the left corner. And then what I also want to invite you to do after you've done that, if possible, you will see my colleague, Eddie Gonzalez, who some of you know from these gatherings. And if possible, would you put him right below me in the corner? Okay, Eddie has no idea what I'm doing right now. Eddie, we did not coordinate this before, did we? So he's saying no. Okay, so I'm one of the other things I do in addition to my work at On Being is I'm a meditation teacher and mindfulness coach. And one of my fundamental beliefs about this meditation and mindfulness is that we, just as in all of life, that we acknowledge that we come to these spaces both honoring gravity, sort of the intensity, the weightiness, the holiness of all things, and also the levity of our world. So humor and play, a lightheartedness. And I want to lean on that second one today. And maybe that feels helpful with how some of this has begun today. But over the last week, I saw a Zoom show. It was a magic show. Okay, I'm not a magician, However, this meditation, in connecting with the poem that will be read by Brad today, and also in honor of, say, fourth graders, that he has a beautiful poem about himself as a fourth grader, or any other children, we're gonna have a little magic in our meditation. So Eddie, I saw earlier in our previous meeting that you have a hat in your space. It's not the hat you're wearing, there's another hat. Will you show us your hat? Oh, look at that. What does that look like? Looks like a magic hat of sorts, right? So Eddie, if you could lift that hat up. Eddie, is anything in that hat? Is anything in the hat? There's nothing in the hat, okay. So if you could lift the hat up to the top, all the way, okay? You see my hand now. Is my hand going into the hat? Okay, I have two things in here I'm pulling up. So I have one, oh, look at that, that's a coin. Okay, and I'm gonna reach my other hand in there. And two, I have another coin, all right? Thank you, Eddie. Everyone give Eddie a round of applause. So we have two coins. Today, Brad will be leading us through a poem called The Wishing Well. That talks about, making a wish with coins. So now I invite you to close your eyes and open up your palms and feel that I am placing one of these quarters into each of your palms. Maybe feel that maybe it feels cool, maybe it feels hard, and just close your palms for a second on each of those coins I've just given you. And now, whenever you're ready, I want to invite you to take a deep breath in through your nose, drawing breath into your belly, up into your chest. Hold for a second and release. At your own pace, we're going to do 2 more deep breaths just like that as you're holding these coins. And release. And one more into your belly, your chest. Hold and release. Now you still have those coins in your hand. I want to invite you to do 2 things as we enter this time today. The first one is going to be, I'm going to invite you to make a wish and toss this coin into the well. Make a wish that is sort of your intention for yourself in this space, or for this day, or for the rest of this week. How do you want to be here now? How do you want to open yourself up? How do you want to receive? Just take a few moments to reflect on that. And when you're ready, you can throw that coin into the well. And now there's another one here in your other hand, this other coin. And I want to invite you to consider someone else on whose behalf you will be making a wish. Perhaps with your other hand, you're imagining yourself holding their hand, or putting your hand on their shoulder, or on the small of their back, their head. It might be someone who jumped in here and bombed our space. It might be someone who's struggling in your own life. It might be someone who needs an extra bit of grace right now. And I invite you to make a wish on their behalf. So when you're ready, we'll just take a few breaths again, a few moments, be silent, who comes to mind, and then I'll invite you to throw that coin in the well. Whenever you're ready, you can say that wish for that person, sending kindness their way. And now before you open your eyes, let's take one more deep breath together. And exhale. Now allow your breath to settle into a natural rhythm. Whenever you're ready, I invite you to slowly open your eyes and bring your awareness back into the space you're in, and then to the room that we're in together. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I didn't know you could move the squares around at all. So that was magic that I had never, ever seen after a year of doing this. So that was amazing. What a wonderful, wonderful way to start together. I think some people have joined us a little late, so, but not too late. You got to experience a little bit of Ben's magic meditation. And now we're turning it over to Brad, Aaron, Maudlin. I've been saying Maudlin, but I just learned that it is actually Maudlin, formerly even spelled like Maudlin sound. And Brad is a poet, and he is the Reynolds Endowed Chair of Creative Writing and a professor at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. And we featured one of his poems in one of our last gatherings. And Brad came and also talked about another poem. And we're super excited to have him here today to talk about Gregory Pardlow's gorgeous poem, Wishing Well. So take it over, Brad.
Thank you. So we'll start by, let's just read the poem. Such an amazing poem. Outside the Met, a man walks up, sun tweaking the brim sticker on his starter cap, and he says, "Pardon me, old school." He says, "You know, is this a wishing well?" "Yeah, son," I say, sideways over my shrug. "Throw your bread on the water." I tighten my chest, wheezy as a rockaway beach sand, and with a pull of faux smoke on my e-cig to cozy the truculence I hotbox alone, and I am at the museum because it is not a bar. Because he appears not to have changed them in days, I eye the heel-chewed hems of his pants and think probably he will ask me for 50 cents any minute now. Wait for it, a smoke or something. Central Park displays the frisky transparency of autumn. Tracing paper sky, leaves like eraser crumbs gum the pavement. As if deciphering celestial script, I squint and purse off toward the roofline of the museum, aloof, as he fists 2 pennies from his pockets, mumbling, and then aloud, "My man," he says, "hey, my man, I'm going to make a wish for you too." I am laughing now. "So what, you want me to sign a waiver?" He laughs along. "Ain't say all that," he says, but you do have to hold my hand and close your eyes. I make a starless night of my face before he asks, "Are you ready?" "Yeah, dog, I'm ready." "Sure?" "Sure, let's do this." His rough hand in mine inflates like a blood pressure cuff, and I squeeze back as if we are about to step together from the sill of all resentment and timeless toward the dream source of unneeding. The two of us hurtle, sharing the cosmic breast of plenitude, when I hear the coins blink against the surface and I cough up daylight like I've just been dragged ashore. "See now, you'll never walk alone," he jokes, and is about to hand me back to the day he found me in like I was a rubber duck. And he says, "You gotta let go." But I feel bottomless, and I know he means well, though I don't believe, and I feel myself shaking my head no when he means let go his hand. So this poem, when I heard it on the Poetry Unbound episode last year, I thought that's the one that I wanted to talk about with you all. It's just so amazing in so many ways. I'm particularly drawn to stories about strangers, and in which the concept of stranger is questioned. So maybe that's part of why I loved it. I think the poem has a lot of lessons to teach us, and we could talk about it for a really long time. But there are 3 aspects of the poem that I particularly wanted to look at together. And Stacy mentioned that I am a professor, and in these days in which so much happens on Zoom, I really miss my chalkboard. And so I've taken to writing in this notebook and then holding it up. And I find that it's as helpful to me as it is to listeners. So I hope you will indulge me as I hold up some things that I think we can think about with the poem. So I thought we could go kind of from the top down, looking at the first and maybe most important aspect of the poem, which is separateness, and how that becomes something else. So in the first half of the poem, we have all of these ways in which the characters are separate, and especially the way the main character, the speaker, is trying to be separate from other people, making a choice to be separate. So he's outside the Met. The man comes up to him and he says, "Pardon me, old school." So the younger guy's calling him, "You're different, you're older than me." And then he says, "Yeah, son." So he's kind of plays along, and he doesn't mean son in some endearing way. He means it, establishing this distance. We see those italics almost like they're kind of mocking each other, maybe. And he says it in a sideways way over his shrug. So he's not interested in connecting with this person. Then we come down and we see that he's smoking his e-cig to cozy the truculence. I hotbox alone. So we have this idea of, sort of vitriol, this antagonism, and he even uses this word that's sort of I don't know, a less common word. So there's almost like this isolation in the way that he's even describing this, but he's saying, "I've got this sort of push, I want to push you away." And then he says, and I hotbox it alone, which is a word I don't think I've heard that since I was in high school. And my classmates would talk about smoking marijuana in the car to fill it up with smoke, and they call that hotboxing. And so it's like he's choosing to immerse himself in this feeling of pushing people away. And then we get this moment that's so beautiful in the poem. It's so quick, but he says, "And I'm at the museum because it is not a bar." As if there's something, there's things that are going on for the speaker that we don't know about. He's going maybe through a difficult patch. He's in a difficult context. And maybe he's been going to the bar too often, right? So he's desperate to find somewhere else to be. But then as soon as he gives us that moment of sort of vulnerability and connection with us, he starts to push somebody away again, push the other character away. And again, using the word because. So you hear "because it is not a bar," and you think he's going to say, "because I am struggling." But this is not what he says. He says, "because this guy is struggling, because he appears not to have changed them in days I eye his pants." So we're finding these ways to keep pushing and to keep, creating this separateness. The guy maybe wants to interact and connect, but then he says later down, "I squint and purse off toward the roofline of the museum aloof." And then everything changes. Here we reach the second half of the poem, and we start to have not just separateness, but now we have overlap. And here the second half of the poem is about the overlap. He says, "My man, I'm going to make a wish for you too. I am laughing now." So the resistance is declining, right? It's not saying, "Okay, you can do it exactly," but he's saying, "You don't actually have to get my permission." Okay, I'm not saying that, but you do have to hold my hand. And at first I think there's no way he's going to hold this guy's hand, right? He's pushing against him too much, but he does. He makes a starlit night of his face when he's closing his eyes to make it the starless night. He says, "Are you ready?" "Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this." His rough hand in mine inflates like a blood pressure cuff. And then we see these words. "I squeeze back as if we are about to step together from the sill of all resentment." And that's what I'm thinking, that's what was going on in the first half of the poem for the speaker. These resentment against self and bad luck and things that are going on. And they're putting him in the context that he's in, resenting this guy who's walking up and interrupting his tranquil moment, maybe. But now we're at the sill of it where we can leap away from it, timeless toward the dream source of unneeding. It's so maybe freeing what might be possible that we even have to kind of make up words for it. It's a dream source of unneeding. Unneeding. The two of us hurtle toward the cosmic breast of plenitude where everything, not scarcity, but everything will be full. When I hear the coins blink against the surface and cough up daylight like I've just been dragged ashore. "See, now you'll never walk alone," he jokes, and is about to hand me back to the day he found me. And I don't want him to go back to the day that he was found in, right? Like I was a rubber duck, and he says, "You've got to let go." But I feel bottomless, and I know he means well, though I don't believe. And I think, and if you've heard Poetry Unbound, where Padraig talks about it, there's this, is he ready to let go? Is he ready to jump from the sill of resentment? Is he ready to let go of the separateness that he's been emphasizing and seeking? He says, "You got to let go of that." And he says, "I don't know, because I feel bottomless. Like I could just keep on falling. And I know he means well, but I don't believe. And I feel myself shaking." And I love this. Here's the geeky professor in me says, "I love this line break. And I feel myself shaking." My head, no. So we got to have the shaking of the body plus the shaking of the head. And he says, "No, let go of my hand." And we see there's been this battle between the separateness and the overlap. because he's overlapping, he's connecting, he's being one with this other person. And he doesn't want to like let go of his resentment, but he also doesn't want to let go of the togetherness that is the hand that he won't let go. So both of those, sort of, it's like the poem is sort of ending almost like on this like existential cliffhanger where it's like, how will we go forward? How will he live his life? Will he choose to accept this possibility that maybe he's been given this gift of not walking alone? So that is the first thing I think that we can see from the poem is this idea of separateness versus overlap. And then here I'm going to say that this is sort of like this umbrella for the other things that we're going to see in the poem. There's two other things I want to talk about. And one is an overlap as exemplified in need. So as we look, the poem I think has a lot to teach us about this, where the speaker realizes that he needs this other person. Right? He's afraid to let go of him. The other person's the one who maybe can give him this gift of connection, this gift of letting that resentment go. I've got some places in mind where I see this, but maybe if it's okay, those who feel comfortable could unmute themselves and point in, are there any places where you see how we need this mysterious figure who appears? Sometimes it's awkward in a Zoom. You think I don't want to.
Brad, I turned it off so that folks can't unmute themselves since of what happened. So maybe they could put it in the chat.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Yeah.
Them. That would be, thank you. Yeah, the day he found me, and it was almost like he rescued me, right? The unself-consciousness that he needs from the character. Yeah. Yeah. He showed him how to find. Yeah. This familiarity, the nicknames that they give each other, he's giving him this connection. He needs the connection. He's solitary. He's away from the social space of the bar, for example, perhaps. He went somewhere other than a bar, but someplace where others were. Yeah. You can't help but feel lonely in New York. Bars are that temporary alleviation, but only temporary. The needing and the unneeding, the stranger establishing the trust that the speaker, the main character, needs. Thank you all for that. So this is, of course, like what is one of the poem's more, I guess, prominent demonstrations of need, and that's the one that I kept noticing the first, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times that I read the poem. But then maybe on time 11, I noticed something else. The part at the beginning, if we could scroll towards the beginning of the poem, we've got this point where we see that the need is maybe not only going in one direction, because the mysterious figure comes up and he says, pardon me, old school. He says, is this a wishing well? And it wasn't until the 11th or so time of reading it that I thought, wait a minute. Why is he asking this guy if it's a wishing well? The man is just one man among the many people who are probably standing in front of the Met on this given day in New York. And it's not like he has a t-shirt on that says, Met staff or, museum staff or anything like that. There's no reason to think this particular man is somehow an authority on whether or not this is a wishing well. He doesn't need permission from anybody else to have this as an officially designated wishing well and you can wish here. Right? You can throw your coins into it no matter what, right? So why does he ask? And so I think there's maybe a couple of reasons here. Maybe it's because in a mysterious way, he recognizes what the speaker needs and the speaker needs to make this wish. The main character of the poem needs to make this wish. And so he's saying, hey, this is all his warm up to saying like, let's make the wish together. But maybe it's also his own need. Maybe the mysterious figure knows that it's only a wishing well if somebody else does agree. Maybe there is some sort of coordination or collaboration necessary for the wishing. So, as Ben had us do our wish meditation earlier, is there some sort of power in knowing that this room of 63 other people is also participating in that with you? Does it create some sort of sacredness or some sort of, does it, count more? Is the wish more likely to come true? So maybe he also needs this companionship. Maybe he's also thinking about this idea of walking alone. Maybe he wants to hold hands with someone for it to count. We see that he gets the 2 pennies. He could have handed one of the pennies to the main character, but it's like, no, he wants to be the one doing it. He's the one, I think, who believes in the wishing more, but he also wants to hold that man's hand. He could throw the coins without holding the main character's hand, but I think there's something there too. So I think that there is a mutual need to what's going on here. And so this is where I think there's another overlap, in that the characters themselves are recognizing their common and shared need for each other and their ability to make something happen. And then the third and final thing I want to talk about that this poem is teaching us is about echo. And this is, we're told, here, let's look at what he says at the beginning. When he says, do you know this? Is this a wishing well? And the main character says, yeah, son. I say sideways over my shoulder, throw your bread on the water. And we get this impression that he's just sort of, tossing the, okay, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. Incorporating this expression that we sometimes use that's just, try your luck, see what happens. Yeah, whatever. But then that expression is echoed towards the bottom of the poem, because the expression has a couple of different meanings, doesn't it? So sometimes we'll use it when we say, just try your luck, but we also sometimes say it in a way of throw out your kindness, throw out your generosity. And then, the full quote, which is actually from the book of Ecclesiastes, is, you will find that bread after many days, it will return to you. So give out your kindness, and then later, who knows when, the kindness will return to you. Could we scroll down towards the bottom of the poem, where we see the coins are being thrown in the water? So he is literally throwing the coins on the water like the bread, right? And then I hear the coins blink against the surface. And then what happens? I, the speaker, cough up daylight like I've just been dragged to shore. So he's the bread. It's like the speaker, the mysterious figure has thrown his bread upon the water, and what has returned is our main character who has been restored to some sort of life even. And so there's been the gift of the speaker, or of the mysterious figure, sort of echoing back, and the person is being brought to this other this other way of living, and it's echoing this older phrase, this older expression that people have been saying for generations and generations. And this sort of idea of echo is something I've really been thinking a lot about. Well, I wasn't using the word echo until this poem gave it to me, but throughout the pandemic, the ways that we recognize our connection to others, our overlap with others, our echoing, be it in terms of our health, the choices that we make for our own health and our own immune systems are also choices we're making for everybody else who we may interact with. The choices we make for wearing a mask or getting a vaccine are choices that we're making for other people. And then likewise, those folks' choices are echoing towards us. I've been thinking about the solitude and the loneliness of the pandemic, and also the way that the tiniest moments. I've been thinking about like the loneliness of the pandemic, but then thinking also about the way that we have historical echoes that we're living in. So earlier on in the pandemic, I learned there's a patron saint of pandemics. And then I thought, well, of course I was so surprised. And then, of course, there's a patron saint of pandemics. Pandemics have been happening for a long time. So was a saint, Saint Roche, who lived during a pandemic, and he's the patron saint. And people have thought, we need companionship. We need the togetherness that, for some folks, the idea of a saint provides. And so this was their solution. And we're kind of living in the echo of those people needing that. I've been jogging a lot, and I'm lucky to live. I've been jogging through a moderately hilly, not especially hilly place, but a little bit of hilly area. And the other day I was jogging, and there were two people on a sled. I thought they were kids. It turns out it was a mother and child. And they were just laughing. And they're kind of ahead of me in the path. So I'm holding back, trying to maintain my 6 feet of distance. But I was also holding back because I wanted to hear their joy, right? And just kind of like take it in for a second. And then they sledded down the hill, and they left that imprint in the snow. And so I also chose to like trace their sled prints and to run exactly in the print of their sled rather than to the margins, because I kind of wanted to be like living in the echo of that joy. so that's so those are some of the things that I think we can learn from this poem. There's a lot more too, but that we may choose separateness, but there's this overlap, and it's an overlap of mutual need, and it's this overlap that's this sort of resonance and echo from the past and from the choices that each other is making that are overlapping with us. So shall we do a writing response? One of the things about the poem, sorry, if we could look at it for just one second more. One of the things about the poem, and if we listen to it on the podcast, you may not have noticed unless you maybe went to the On Being website, but there are no quotation marks anywhere throughout the body of the poem. We have this dialogue, but I think that's part of the overlap. Is like it's even sometimes becomes a little bit difficult to hear who's saying what. But look at the very bottom. We do have a quote mark, and at the very top, there is one quote mark. And so it's not exactly that the poet is the one telling us this story. It's almost like the poet's the one hearing the story, that this is all, or that someone has presented, is telling us this story, this thing that happened to them, and we're listening to it. So there's this other echo of story that I think we can tap into as we do our writing prompt. And so the prompt is to think about stories. And these can be stories that have in fact happened or happened to you, or you've been told by someone else, or it could be a story that maybe you would like to happen. But I'll drop it here in the chat, but I'll read it to you first. So I've got 2 sentences that you can kind of fill in as much as you want. And your writing for the 12 minutes could be just continually filling in that sentence again and again and again. Or it could be that you fill it in and maybe that's the top of your poetry exercise, and then you continue fleshing it out as you go. But the 2 options are: stranger, you wished me well. We were at blank, perhaps location, and blank happened. Or the other one is: in blank, and in blank, I offer you this overlap. And that could be in public life, in interaction at the store, in telling the stories to one's children, in the things that we leave behind, in the ways that we have similarity. Do those make sense?
So beautiful, Brad. Brad will put the prompts into the chat, and we'll write probably about 10 minutes today, so we have a little more time to hear some folks. And I'll come back and let you know when we're about 8 minutes in, and then when we're cozy and close to 10. So enjoy your writing. If you have any questions, just write in the chat.
I never felt the weight of the clouds until the shot. After all, I'm used to solitude and heavy weather.
Thank you. How about Jazine?
Okay. Stranger, you wished me well. We were speeding headlong towards each other on a sliver of sidewalk. And when you stopped, moved aside to let me pass, I stopped, moved aside to smile.
Thank you. Maybe Sandra next.
Okay, I haven't thought about this in years. Stranger, you wished me well. We were in Santa Cruz, California. You were standing on a patch of grass in front of your house, white t-shirt, black trousers. I was walking in your neighborhood, visiting a friend, lost in thought. I was in my early 30s and weighing options, contemplating a big decision. Give up my life on the East Coast, job, friends, history, to migrate to California and start again. I was married, and even though my husband and I were in this together, I was swimming in my own uncertainty. As I walked by you across the street from where you stood, you looked straight at me and said plainly, without sentiment, "You will not be lost again." Perhaps I misheard you, but because your instructions fit the moment like a cup in a saucer, I took your words to heart. I won't, I thought. I know where I ought to go. 6 months later, we set out from Boston to California in a 20-foot moving van.
What a gift. And you think that person, maybe they don't even remember it anymore, but that echo that they've given.
So weird.
Yeah. We've got a handful more names, and maybe I'll trust Stacy or Ro to say, Brad, stop calling people's names. But until then, we have Jennifer.
Hi, can you hear me? This isn't quite done, but this is what I have so far. Stranger, you wish me well. Last night I was 7-Eleven bound and head buried in stars, needing something to further my insomnia. You opened the vestibule to my convenient palace, kindly billowing with potted priesthood. I offered wings and a salad by your request and bought halal for our shared hamlessness. Another woman, tall and proud, lodged her way in front of us, an ivory jab. She gawked and rolled her eyes with clouds of sulfur, whispering loud at me, "Hun, you should know better. You don't need to do anything for him. He's always here." She elbowed her way to the cashier and coughed in a huff. I wished the man well. He said hi, and that's what I had so far.
Next, we have Sarah from Sarah plus Steven.
Thank you. Great job, host, with the unmuting. That's impressive. Stranger, you wished us well. We were post-hiking bliss, warm, mellow, waiting for our lift. And you said, there is something about the way you two are sitting there. You are at peace. And I looked at you in our pandemic, in my anxiety, and I felt peace.
Nicholas.
Oh, hi. So I had wrote one, but I don't really feel this one. I just came up with one on the spot. It's the same concept, but it's about a different person than a few minutes ago. Stranger, you wished me well. We were at our class on Zoom meeting for the first time, and you saw the pain in my eyes from what I had went through a few weeks ago, and we had not even known each other. And you wished for my peace and serenity, and you took the time to get to know me and become the friend that I needed. In gratitude and love and in appreciation, I offer you my hand in friendship.
Maybe time for one more. Is that what Stacy is saying? Okay. So then it looks like that will be Evangelos.
Yeah, thank you. Greetings from Greece. I am far away. Stranger, you wished me well. We were at the same bench and I didn't notice you. At the same bench and you spoke first. At your left, I was quietly welling up. At my right, you looked worried and concerned. At once, you asked why. Stranger, you asked, and I couldn't answer. At a stand, I glanced at you. At peace, you smiled. At the drop of a hat, I smiled. Stranger, I wished you well.
So nice to hear all those. Thank you all for sharing.
Really beautiful, everyone. And Kim and anyone else who had wished to share, I want to remind you that we do collect any of the writings that you've made during this time. You'll get a note from Ro, our fearless, multi-talented host of all complicated things in Zoom and communications. Ro also wrote in the chat that you can email to ro@thewell.world. And we collect all these poems in an edited audio recording of our session today. So we will not hear our first poem, quote unquote poem. So gorgeous. So before we finish with one final reading of the poem, Wishing Well, I just want to let everyone know that we'll be meeting again in March, the end of March, the last Wednesday in March, to celebrate another poem. And we will be with Troy Bronsink from The Hive and Amy Tuttle from Wordplay. After that, you'll be getting, or sometime within a few weeks, you're going to get another email. We're launching a new set of poems for Poetry Month, and we're going to meet for 5 weeks, every Wednesday for 5 weeks in April and the first week of May to celebrate those new poems. They're actually from Poetry Unbound, but they're just specially selected to also be shared with all of our schools and more broadly. And we will once again, to anyone who wishes to submit, we're going to produce a second collection of poems created in these virtual gatherings during Poetry Month with our mindful poetry gatherings. So I think that's it for housekeeping. Anything else, Ro or Eddie or Brad or Ben? Great. So beautiful, everyone. It's just amazing to see everyone in the space and hear your gorgeous responses. And also, Ben, I've never done a magic meditation opening, but that was amazing. And Brad, just a lovely spirit and an exciting way to think about the poem. So would you like to read us out?
Yeah, I sure can.
Okay, thank you.
Wishing Well. Outside the Met, a man walks up, sun tweaking the brim sticker on a starter cap, and he says, "Pardon me, old school." He says, "You know, is this a wishing well?" "Yeah, son," I say, sideways over my shrug. "Throw your bread on the water." I tighten my chest, wheezy as Rockaway Beach sand, with a pole of faux smoke on my e-cig to cozy the truculence I hotbox alone, and I am at a museum because it is not a bar. Because he appears not to have changed them in days, I eye the heel-chewed hems of his pants and think probably he will ask me for 50 cents any minute now. Wait for it, a smoke or something. Central Park displays the frisky transparency of autumn. Tracing paper sky, leaves like eraser crumbs gum the pavement. As if deciphering celestial script, I squint and purse off toward the roofline of the museum, aloof, as he fists 2 pennies from his pockets and mumbling, and then aloud, "My man," he says, "Hey, my man, I'm going to make a wish for you too." I am laughing now. "So what, you want me to sign a waiver?" He laughs along. "Ain't say all that," he says, "but you do have to hold my hand and close your eyes." I make a starless night of my face before he asks, "Are you ready?" "Yeah, dog, I'm ready." "Sure, sure, let's do this." His rough hand in mine inflates like a blood pressure cuff, and I squeeze back as if we are about to step together from the sill of all resentment and timeless toward the dream source of unneeding, the two of us sharing the cosmic breast of plenitude, when I hear the coins blink against the surface, and I cough up daylight like I've just been dragged ashore. "See now, you'll never walk alone," he jokes, and is about to hand me back to the day he found me in, like I was a rubber duck. And he says, "You got to let go." But I feel bottomless, and I know he means well, though I don't believe. And I feel myself shaking my head no when he means let go his hand.
Thank you, everyone. A very nourishing hour, and I can't wait to see you all again next month. We wish you well.